All right, we're live. We're live. What's up, guys? John Sintes here, Cutternation. Got an awesome guest. My buddy and I, we send messages all the time back to each other. Frustration, happiness, good things. Before we get there, don't forget to go over to my online store, check out my gear, grab one of these don't think, just throw shirts. I got 3 hats left. They're all the baseball logo stuff. I got some new stuff in the works. I released 2 new shirts this past week. I got another one coming out. It may or may not have something to do with Bayou, which is kind of funny because Rob and I were just talking about some funny things. And if you know about that, then you know exactly what we're talking about. But without further ado, my man from Bridgeport, Connecticut, all the way via YouTube, amazing technology coming in, Rob Blanc, prime.perform on Instagram. Rob, good morning. How are you? How are things going?
I'm good. How are you?
Dude, I'm great. I'm a little slow this morning, so I decided that since you and I always send each other bangs, I need to grab a celebratory bang here. Go ahead and kick off the day
Love
with
it.
a bang and go from
Love it.
there. I love these things. Like I wouldn't say that I'm addicted, but they're just too easy, you know?
I mean, I'd 100% say I'm addicted to every single one of them. So
Okay. Okay. All
we're
right.
all the same, we're in
I'm
the
in.
same boat.
Yeah, I'm in. I'm in for sure. All right, so you and I kind of met on Instagram, kind of sent some back and forth information, and I really like, and some guys that listened to the podcast before, I really like how the community of baseball pitching is specifically for what we're doing is so tuned in to information and sharing. And I really feel like with the stuff that you put out there, you know, you put out some really quality information, especially with you trying to be a giant human and moving houses from one location to another just by yourself, because you're always sending me rack pulls or deadlifts or workouts. And I'm like, all right, well, I did work out. Apparently I didn't do enough today, so I have to go back and do some more. Can you explain your strategy on what you're trying to do to stay in shape as an instructor?
I mean, as far as an instructor goes, I kind of, my philosophy as far as like with my kids is if I don't show that I'm going to compete at the highest level, how can I expect my players to? Um, so my background in strength conditioning, after I graduated college, I went to Franklin Pierce University. And I played 4 years there. And actually went to 2 College World Series. It was pretty sweet. And I studied sports and recreation management, but I didn't really feel like what I wanted to do. So later on, after pro ball, I decided, you know what, I'm going to get into the strength conditioning field. And it actually all started when I actually got mentored by Alex Casillas or Flama DGAF on Instagram.
Oh, wow.
Um,
All right.
so that was a huge starting point for like the rest of basically my new career. And he really got me into it and really opened my eyes on a different way to train for baseball. I mean, because most of us throughout our career, especially for us, like back when we were in college, it was all about like, hey, let's stay mobile. We can't really lift heavy. We're pitchers. So it's not really, it's kind of taboo to let it rip in the weight room and out squat or out deadlift some of the bigger position players. And I really found that over the course of time, I saw a huge jump in velocity for me. And then for a lot of my players now who are gaining 10, 15 pounds over the course of a weekend, gaining 10 course of an off season, gaining 10, 20 miles an hour on fastballs and pull downs. It's insane.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. The school that I went to was my second, no, my third year at because I was a redshirt in my first year in junior college, and then my second year I threw submarine for a year and hated it because I never pitched in a game. I had a nasty slider. I had a bowling ball 12-6 changeup that I threw at like 55 miles an hour. But the sidearm part, I was up to like 86. Not too bad, you know, but I just never pitched in a game, so I hated it. Like I threw like 20 innings in a whole season. And we were up 10 or down 10. And I had pretty good numbers, but I just didn't enjoy it, you know? And so they end up like releasing me. So I try to go on a sabbatical and figure out how I'm going to pitch, what I'm going to do, kind of teach myself the things that I thought I was doing right, and end up getting an opportunity to go to University of West Florida. Had a great experience there. But the first thing I was there is, you know, we didn't really have a strength coach and things from there. And then final year, we actually got a strength coach, and the guy knew what he was talking about, was ahead of the curve for, power cleans and deadlifts and squats and functional movements and medicine balls and training more like an athlete. And I really got a lot more athletic in what I was doing. But unfortunately, that was actually combined with something where I was told that the way I was throwing the ball at my senior year was inefficient by my manager, and I needed to change it. I needed to shorten up my arms. I was too long. I was too I don't even remember what he said, to be honest with you. It's been like 14.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's been so, but basically I remember, long story short, my circle was too long on the backside and it was causing drag and this and that and blah, blah, blah. But the funny thing is, I found out later when one of my teammates from summer ball from the Valley League saw me throw, he was like, dude, why'd you change your motion? And I said, well, I was told that scouts didn't like my arm action. It was too long, and it was going to cause this and this. And he goes, well, you were like 90 to 94 with us this summer, and you're like 84, 87. Are you hurt? And I said, I'm not really hurt. And I said, but I'm just, I just kind of tried this new thing that my coach said, and that, I guess it feels good. I don't feel any problems. But what I did notice, in retrospect in the two, was my level of soreness before and after was unbelievable. Like in the summer, we had a 7-man rotation because in the Valley, our head coach was a high school baseball coach and wanted to make sure everybody got innings, which really means we lost all the time, And so I would like start a game, have 3 days off, throw 1 inning in relief, have a day off, throw another inning in relief, have and 2 more days again. Off, and then start. Yeah. And so it'd be like a 10-day rotation, which, isn't terrible, and looking back, but if you're trying to build or do anything from there, it's, it's very inefficient from that. But that being said, it's kind of funny now how, you're starting to see some of these guys, with the, what's it called? The yellow ball that guys are like putting in.
The connection balls.
Connection ball. Yeah, the connection ball, where people are kind of getting real short with that, and trying to do the pocket whip stick and stuff, but in a kind of a different way. And I don't mind it. I don't mind it. It really works out. But for me personally, it hurt. It just didn't work. So I ended up having a invulsion fraction in my elbow where my tricep pulled my bone apart. And so, and actually took, let's see, when it happened Easter weekend. My whole family drove to Huntsville, Alabama. It was 30 degrees and I couldn't get hot. And I made it to the 3rd inning and I threw a pitch and I just heard a snap. Immediately thought Tommy John. But if you know anything about Tommy John, if you snap it, there's giant swelling and possibly some bruising. Yeah. And mine swelled for about 6 hours and then went down to nothing, which really confused everybody, except for I was still having massive pain if I remember specifically trying to pull my bag with my arm and being like, oh, like that was, a repeat of pain. And then also I stepped off of something and like the impact of my body hitting the ground also created pain. So I was very confused. Oh, yeah. And then when I go to the doctor, I go to the Andrews Institute in Pensacola, which is where our school's at. The doctor tells me, looks like a strain. I'm not really getting any issues back. And my coach is in the meeting with us, and he's like, do you think he can be back for a conference tournament? We need him, blah, blah, blah. He's our ace. And, I'm thinking the same thing. Like, hey, if you think it's a strain, how long am I out? Blah, blah, blah. And he's like, well, let's wait 2 weeks, and then you need to start rehab next, in 2 or 3 days, and then we'll see how it goes from there. So about a 4-week rehab progress goes. I don't progress at all. Like they're doing shoulder stretches. They're doing anything that's like any kind of torque or anything. We don't know at this time that there's an 85% stress fracture in my elbow. We don't figure that out till after the conference tournament. And then 2 weeks later, when I finally go to get my basically your exit interview with the training staff, where they try to get me to sign this letter where I'm completely, healthy.
Of course.
I'm not signing anything, man. I can't throw. I can't run. I can barely do a tricep extension. I can't do a push-up. Like something's wrong. You know what I mean? And so, long story short, they do an MRI, call me back. I end up having 2 surgeries in 3 years to figure it out, and then had to refigure out my life how to go from there. But that being said, I would not have learned the amount of information. I would not have learned how to throw my cutter. I would not have learned all these things now and where I'm at and how I could be 32 years old and throw 160 pitches and 11 innings in a Tijuana championship game, which we lose, because I can. Like
Yeah.
when you're at, and I don't recommend anybody doing that, but I'm saying the only reason why I went to that point is because I went, okay, I know I have unlimited amount of recovery time after this. There is no, and you only play on Sundays, so there
Yeah.
is no next weekend. So it was a completely different situation. So taking all that and then running into you as a large human and trying to go from there. When you figured out, when you were training with Flama, what was really like one of the first things that opened your eyes to this different way of training? Because I had some similar,
Mm.
I had some things like that kind of be like, whoa, 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 what's all this stuff?
Okay, so my freshman year of college, I threw was my first year of pitching ever because I was a catcher all the way up into college. So I threw 50 plus 60 innings out of the pen my freshman year, and I actually toward the end of the year, I had a huge amount of shoulder problems. But at that point, I was up to 94, 95, and I was the freshman closer. Um, and the biggest thing was I kind of ran out of gas toward the end, and actually went to the Cape Cod League and pitched for the Yarmouth Dennis Red Sox for a few weeks. And I threw one pitch, and my posterior labrum literally snapped in half.
Oh,
Um, so I threw the ball about 50 feet and couldn't really lift my shoulder for 3 weeks. So I ended up getting surgery, and then I spent the next 5 years either not pitching, throwing 10 or less innings, seeing drastic changes in velocity, and ultimately I kind of almost gave up on baseball because I couldn't figure it out. Couldn't throw a strike, couldn't throw hard, never felt good again. And it took me all the way up until the point when I met Flom on Instagram, because I was just looking on Instagram one day, and I came across this page, and it was like, oh, well, this is a huge. That's when I first discovered Driveline. And I actually messaged him. I was like, hey, you know what? I'm going to go for a training program. And I'd messed around with weighted balls before where I did like the Tom House program. I mean, I saw a little bit of progress with that. But I didn't even see remotely the amount of gains I saw with the Driveline program. I mean, I saw double what I saw with the Tom House velocity program. Um, but what I realized in the beginning of my training process was when I would take video of myself throwing, I was like, damn, like I move really, really slow and I don't know why. And that was the biggest thing he came to me. He's like, dude, you need to start picking up. And that's when I first really learned about intent. And I find like intent is like a huge problem with a lot of kids these days. It's like they're uncomfortable working at like 100% or working at 110% where, oh, well, there's a risk of injury or like a fear of injury. And that was my biggest thing was like I was scared to get hurt again. And it took me months of training with basically with intent and working with like plyo balls and weighted balls to finally open up the floodgates. And then I was up to 94 again when I first went into pro ball. Um, so with that in mind, the tr- the weightlifting wise, like I saw toward the end of my career, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna start to lift, but I didn't really have a plan. I didn't really understand what I was doing. I was kind of like, hey, let's get big as possible, and hopefully that works out. Well, obviously it didn't because I still couldn't throw a strike and I still couldn't throw hard because I couldn't move fast. So later on, when I started working with Flama, the whole different driveline training method using velocity based training and understanding, hey, how we can create fast twitch muscle fibers through big lifts like bench for squat, deadlift, overhead press, whatever. And it kind of went against everything that I knew before that. It was like, okay, well, everyone's been telling me, even my strength coaches, my coaches, hey, pitchers never lift overhead, they never bench press, they never do any of these big lifts. And I kind of took a leap of faith here and I decided, you know what, I'm going to lift it the exact way he's telling me to. I'm going to open my eyes. Hey, I'm going to max out with all these things. And I saw huge progress in my first year. Got up to 315-pound bench press, deadlifting over 500 pounds, squatting almost 400. Um, and it showed because then my velocity came back. It was like, oh, there we go. We're back up to 92, 94. And I had never felt better. And I progressed in the next 3 years until I kind of got to a point where I went to spring training my last year with Traverse City Beach Bums after coming off a Frontier League championship. Um, and I was a little too old because the Frontier League, the age cap is 27. And I kind of fit into the experience category. So I kind of got the short end of the stick, and that's kind of where my journey of training kids and kind of really focusing on developing my players rather than developing myself. And it's probably one of the best decisions I've ever made because I always enjoyed training and the process of training way more than playing. It's, I mean, I the competition you see, like when you're in a weight room or in a room with a plow wall and you're letting balls rip with other dudes, it's like there's nothing better than that. It's constantly competing against the guy next to you, trying to blow it out to 100 or more. So that's basically how I found my new training method, and I'm constantly trying to learn more and more and more and more on how to maximize kids' abilities. I mean, realistically, like if we're looking at a group of guys, you're going to have 10 different players that need to be trained 10 different ways with 10 different problems. So the process of figuring out what works for each individual guy is kind of what drives me to get these kids to reach their ultimate goals. But Driveline in itself, I think, is one of the biggest um, influencers on me and my training methods so far, especially Flama, because he kind of introduced me into all of this stuff because his journey was very similar to mine. He got hurt multiple times and worked around in different JUCOs and went to different independent leagues and kind of just rolled through it and was constantly trying to figure out like with the yips. And you see Flama stuff on Instagram all the time talking about the yips and DGAF and everything else, but the whole mental approach with pitching or throwing or hitting, whatever, of really being aggressive in our movements and not really focusing on mechanical aspects. That's something I struggled with throughout my career. It's like, hey, how can I threw a bad pitch. What did I do wrong? I mean, that's kind of a recipe for failure. It's like, oh, well, if I change this, 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 and this, maybe I'll throw a strike. It doesn't work that way. I'm sure you and I both know that. It's like, hey, we can't really be super mechanical in our throws or in our movements because then we're not really successful. Just successful on a regular basis and we don't throw hard. So at the end of the day, velocity matters. And that's a lot of a thing that kids don't really understand. And I'm sure you run into the same problems with a lot of your kids. It's like velo matters. I mean, queso, that's what it's all about. Yeah, I just yeah, that thing from Trevor Bauer is unbelievable.
Let's see what we got. Yo, Rob, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Okay, there we go. Sorry, my end kind of. I was actually saying it's kind of funny what you were saying because I'm wearing a "Don't Think Just Throw" shirt right now, and that's exactly what you were just talking about.
Oh shit.
No, that's so funny. And honestly, what's weird is I missed Flama in the Pecos League. We actually were on the same team, but he got picked up on the White Sands Pupfish right after I got released from that team after striking out 11. It was hilarious. We had a big issue with the manager there, and this guy was, dude, I didn't even know who he was. So when were you in the Frontier League, by the way, and what team were you on?
So my first year was 2015. Yeah, 2015. I started off with the Lake Erie Crushers. I ended up getting basically released for 3 position players. I got picked up by the normal Corn Belters like 2 weeks later, and then I got sent to the Traverse City Beach Films and actually won the Frontier League Championship. I think that was 2014 or 2015.
So you know what's crazy? I was in spring training with Lake Erie also, but I'm trying to look and see what year it was.
That's fine.
Okay, it was before it was 2012 when I was.
Yeah, so it'd be a year or two before me.
Yeah, so 2012.
Well, who was the coach at that point?
Mazzarelli.
Oh yeah, so no, it was 2 years later, a year or two later.
Okay, yeah, so that's funny. And so I actually went in cold through the draft in Lake Erie, and once I finally got healthy, I was able to get up there. I did real well, and then I ended up getting the short end of the stick too because they brought back 2 guys who got released from affiliated ball. So I wasn't able to I didn't even get an opportunity. I made it to the last day, and then they released 5 of us. And they were like, yeah, you can go to the Pecos League. And I had no idea what it was. And I tried to do research. That was when the websites were even worse than they are now. And so they give me this guy's number. I call him. And so I ended up, my dad's like, well, hey, you need to play. You got to go. I'll help drive you over there. So we drove 24 hours from Florida to New Mexico. And I got over there, called the guy, didn't know who he was. And then realized when I called him and then looked at him that we were like about the same age. I was like, whoa, this is kind of, who are you? What's the deal? And he ended up, all right, well, here's your jersey. Locker room's like this shed over here behind the bullpen. And yeah, if you want to shag BP or whatever, or you want to rest, grab some food, games here at this time, it will be ready in a little bit. So just be ready for that. And I'm like, okay, I guess that's what we're doing, And so I end up like doing the math, meeting a couple guys and looking at some stuff. And there must have been 60 guys out there. And I'm like, that's a lot of people. I don't really know what's going on. And then we have a pitchers meeting and I look around again and I'm like, there must be like 40 of us. Like there's a ton of dudes here, like there was and this guy, in the Pecos League, a lot of people don't know, but even there's a 25-man roster, but that's a daily roster. It doesn't really matter, how things go with that. Like it's really the Wild West of like, professional baseball, quote unquote, where, you get paid, you don't get paid, and there's a whole different thing on that. But long story short, I really wouldn't have gotten to where I was without that because I met this guy, the legend Rod Tafoya, Rod Tafoya, when I met him, I need to catch up with him because I haven't talked in a while. He was 50, throwing 85 as a lefty with only a fastball and a cutter. And he Nolan Ryan grunted every pitch. And he was a president of a bank in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and he could only pitch on Saturday or Sundays. And our manager would finagle the rotation because, by the way, no off days in the Pecos League. You played 72 games in 73 days. The only off day was the All-Star game, and I made the All-Star team both years, which means I really didn't have an off day, which was absolutely a grind. But long story short, it was ended up being, I understood what it was when I got there. I knew, I understand it's not about the money. It's about putting up numbers, doing your best, and then trying to promote yourself outside of it to get out to, a different league, And so it was kind of funny that when I was comparing my career playing history, like Flama ended up, I ended up getting released and then picked up by another team, and then Flama comes back into that team, and then
he moves on from there to the American Association in El Paso, and I knew another guy that ended up doing the same. It was just a weird situation, beginning to end. But that being said, just funny how the world works and how we meet everything. Because when Flama and I ended up trying to, communicating on stuff like that, we started sharing information and this and that and talking social media and everything. He really went full in, and I just, his rants were so legendary, for a while. And now he's kind of, it's really funny to watch as an outsider, to watch what he's doing. And now that he's going with this whole revival slash, getting back to, comeback thing. And it's fun to watch him, because he was one of the first ones. I remember seeing a video that he posted where I think he was, deadlifting. It looked like a straight leg deadlift, like 600 pounds or something. And I just remember being like, I am not that animal right now. I don't know what you're doing, and that was at the beginning of this whole information cycle. And now we have, guys like you, there's another, probably one of your competitors. I'm sure you know them, but the Baseball Performance Center, they're always putting out good stuff too. There's so many really good pages out there that really, and I'm sure you get this too. I get DMs from kids that are like, "Oh, what do I do this? What do I do that?" And I'm like,
yeah.
just look out there. Like, it's out there. It's not that hard to find it,
Yeah, like, you have so much information that you can just look at. Like, there's 500 different pages. You can get 500 different sorts of information. Like, you don't even have to ask me a question, and you'll find, if you look at your page, my page, Baseball Performance, bio pitch, whatever it may be, you're going to find enough information where you can learn how to do things. And that's kind of how I started, and that's how I found Flama. But funny to know that Flama is one of the first driveline guys, because he started off with the huge case of the yips and couldn't figure it out. So he was totally mentally screwed to start with, and then he went and found Kyle and actually fixed basically everything, and then kind of went right back to it.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what his quote unquote comeback season and all that whole thing's going to be, because now he's got the Fernando thing, which I think is hilarious. He's done a really good job, like, identifying and being able for people to be like, I always see it on random pages, like the Velo Farm. I'm not sure if you follow them. That's a great one. They're always putting out like little Fernando things, and then you got VIP. I think it's called VIP Throwing or something like that. That's over on the East Coast too. Those guys are great.
Velocity Increase Program, and then the guy who actually owned VIP now actually runs PRP Baseball.
Oh, okay. Now I got to follow that one now. Okay, hold on. Let's get to there. But long story short, there's so much information for people to be able to get into, to be able to learn something, and there's a couple kids that I remember that I'm always just like, okay, I understand that you want to make sure you don't want to hurt yourself, or you don't want to cause an issue, but it's safe to say that if it doesn't hurt, then I think you're doing something okay. That's the way I look at it. Like, let your body tell you if it feels good or it doesn't. And, like you were talking about with bench press stuff, I even myself only bench press dumbbells for so long. And then this past probably 3 or 4 weeks, I really just okay. I went to Mark Bell's page, by the way, Powerlifter, and was like, he had an intro to basic bench. And it was something as simple as keeping, an overarched back through the entire lift to free up the scaps for my, because I used to feel shoulder pressure, but I had no idea. I was flat backed. I was, there were so many things that I was doing wrong with that, but just something like that, just overarching my back, cleaned up the whole thing. And so now I'm enjoying benching for the first time at 32, where I'm like, oh, look at that, and so it's just, like you, constantly trying to learn, constantly trying to put information out where I can just relay this information to someone else, and I really find it so much fun. That's why I like doing this podcast. I'm such a Joe Rogan, fan with his podcast, because, I literally remember driving from Santa Fe, New Mexico to Trinidad, Colorado. It's a 5-hour drive, and my manager, who is also a guy I had on the podcast, and I need to catch up. His name's Bill Moore. probably one of the best humans in baseball I've ever met. You never met a guy who cared more about people. A little bit old school. He was when I played for him in 2012, 2013, and 12, 13, 14, whatever it was. He was 82, diabetic, former Navy man. And after he got out of the Navy, all the money he made, he bought a car dealership and a strip club next to each other, and used to just bang out business deals all the time, using both of them back and forth. And I mean, the guy had stories for days. He just loved baseball, and he was such a good person to really help people. But he was probably the best judge of character I'd ever, like, he gave me this, or not really, he helped me identify this thing that a lot of people have, but they don't really know what it is. And he called it the smell. And it's one of the funniest things. Like, if you would meet a guy and you smelled, he didn't like you. And it wasn't like an odor. It was just, you could tell how you acted. Like, I'll never forget, we had this 1'6" wiry guy come in, and the dude was like 94, 96. And Bill's a guy that he's old school. It's all professional. It's when you show up to the ballpark, you're taking BP, your shirt's tucked in. We're a team, no shorts in BP. It's pants. It's, clean your shoes, have everything looking good, no backwards hats. He was one of the first guys that I'd heard about sunglasses not covering up the logo of your hat, which is something that the Braves do and some other teams. If you've ever seen teams that, for you guys at home that don't know this, but there's some organizations that have rules where you can't cover up the logo. So that's where you'll see a guy, they'll put the sunglasses on the back of the hat, like so, and it was cool just to hear a different version of baseball, with me being from the South and then him being from Arizona, just all the cool information. But on the flip side, at 82, you're not throwing BP every day. You're definitely not coaching third base every inning. And him being diabetic multiple times, he gave me that look like, I need to eat something. And so I would have to go on a dead sprint to the snack bar, grab a Snickers bar or a slice of pizza and bring it down to him, which he would still take to the third base coaching box.
Of course he would.
And just keep, don't mind him. He's just trying to keep the game going. And it's just such a funny small world. And I love the guy to death, and he's such a great guy and, person that passes on such quality information to athletes. But, it's just the people that you meet in baseball, the relationships, you always hear the guys talk about it. And, on the pros where they, you don't really miss the game so much. You miss the guys. And, I think that with what you're doing with your group training and everything, and like the people that I'm working with, that, I hear that from some of the kids. One of the guys I worked with did a couple weeks in the summer training, and then went to go play in the NorCal Collegiate League. And he shot me some texts and everything. And he's like, he's really followed Driveline on his stuff. And then we took some of the stuff that I had him do, and then the stuff that he liked. And then he went up to the NorCal, and he's just talking about how much better he feels. Like, he has way more awareness on like how to and what to do and how to recover. And he's leading the league in appearances and throwing 2 or 3 innings and just coming in. And he just, Flama, DGAF, he stopped caring about what the quote unquote mechanical side of the things were. And he's trying to compete, and what's crazy with him is his first pull down day, we just worked on a little bit more of external, like following through further, rotating farther, finishing looser, trying to turn everything from the ground up as fast as you possibly can. And he went from 88 to 97 in his pull downs, and it was crazy. Like, we were freaking out. We were all like, and he was even at 97 going like, I think I have more. And then when you look at his numbers, he's 5'9", 160, 155.
Wait, what? He's 5'9"?
Yeah, and he's a 3/4 guy, but he's such a fast twitch guy. And he was, a lot of the stuff that he was doing before he had, met me and stuff like that. He was doing a lot of, something that I incorporate too, that I really like, which are, I like to use the word hold a lot, because I think there's a difference in a release and a hold. But he does some medicine ball holds on some max effort rotation stuff. And so we kind of, I talked to him about it. We implemented it in there, and he really liked using that to warm up and do some stuff. And so we got him to be repeating everything from there. And it was really fun to watch him do his thing. And now he's like, dude, I'm like 92, 94. My slider's better. I helped him with his spin on that and try to maximize his break. And he's like, I just throw it at will. And people keep asking me how I throw it or what I do. And he's like, I just throw it as hard as I can. Like as hard as I can. I try to spin it as fast as I can, like you told me, and I just don't even care. And he said he gave up a bomb on a really good slider, he felt like, and the catcher was like, wow, I don't even know how that guy hit it. He's like, well, and he said before he, had gotten with it, that would have been something that just ruined him. Like if he gave up a double or a bomb or a home run, he would have been like, what am I doing? Did I hang it? And now he's just to the point like, well, when he gives up a bomb, he talks about coming in, with his 3/4 slide, he's got great movement. Now he just he calls it back hip his fastball off the guy and see what he does. And he's gotten 2 after a double and a home run. He's the very next batter. He's gotten 2 swing and misses with the ball actually hitting the guy in the back leg. And I was like, and I said, and our joke is now, why didn't you throw that in the first place? And he's like, I don't know. I felt like the situation and the sequence of what I was trying to do that's what led me to that. And I was like, I totally understand. Everybody knows when you throw that, oh yeah, you execute your pitch and then the guy hits it a mile and you're like, oh, that was a mistake. That was not that was not the right one. It felt good out of your hand and he hit it a mile. Oh, we were all on the same page. There was no deception at all. So it cracks me up, how all that stuff works. So, all right, so let's move on to some more fun stuff. Let's move on to some pitching things. I see a lot of training, a lot of development and stuff from there. We just talked about some rotational things from there. As far as your throwing philosophy, do you have any cues or anything that I like to hear about how people explain the throwing motion and stuff from there? We kind of talked about it before, about the pocket whip, the connection ball, some stuff from there. When you're throwing with guys, and this is a big debate. I know you see it on there. I know you see the pocket whip stick like I do. You see the drive, the non-drive, the rotation, the finish square. What are some things that, let's start off with this one. What are some things that you like to promote that you feel like help your guys be successful?
Okay. So at the end of the day, to each his own when it comes to throwing motions. So for example, like when I was at my best throwing 92, 94, with just fastballs, never throwing an off-speed pitch because it created movement, I could never teach someone to throw that way because biomechanically we're all different. Just like if I try to teach you to throw like me, it probably wouldn't work out so well, strictly because we all move differently. So as far as things go, like my biggest philosophy when it comes to coaching is don't overcoach, because at the end of the day, kids do what feels right. So we need to find that happy medium between understanding, hey, what's efficient and what feels good, because we don't all need to be cookie cutters. I don't need to have every single kid throwing exactly the same, like University of Virginia back in the day, where it's like, hey, every single guy rolls on the mound and throws the exact same way. And
Dude, that's how Florida State was when I was growing up. They did the same thing hitting and pitching wise, and that was like my dream school.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, you're good. But yeah, you see it more and more and more at random different schools, but it's becoming less and less prominent. But you see it more and more in travel ball, especially because I'm in the travel ball scene, especially with high school kids. It's like you see people teaching the same thing to every single kid. It's like, take a step back and realize how that sounds. It's like you're trying to teach one kid who's 6'6", 250, and then the next kid who's 5'11", 180, who throw completely different arm slots and teaching them the same thing. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
These kids can't move the same. So as far as like the pocket goes, I think the pocket is like revolutionary, strictly because something I struggled throughout my career was I had a super long arm swing where I would create a huge arc way behind my back into a scap load, but I would reach it at a point where I'm across my body, where I put too much strain on my shoulder capsule. So that's where my labrum issue may or may not have come from. Because at the end of the day, people say they get hurt because of this, this, and this, but at the end of the day, you got hurt. You can't blame one certain thing.
Yeah.
That's the reason why, like, when people say weighted balls are bad, like, is really weighted balls bad, or hey, how about the way you're throwing, or how about the way you're taking care of yourself?
Yeah.
So when we talk about the pocket of understanding, the biggest thing I find with the pocket is it is efficient, it's repeatable, because as throwers in general, you see it constantly in infielders, outfielders, pitchers, catchers, whatever. Repeatability is key. Like if you can repeat your motion with seven different pitches or from different distances at different intensities, you're going to create consistent results. So I find that, especially with younger kids, I find that with 10, 12, 14-year-olds, creating the pocket and understanding, hey, how to load ourselves into our posterior chain becomes so much easier for these kids to repeat their delivery. Yeah, we're all going to reach it at a different time or in a different way. But I'm seeing great results with these kids because they're actually buying into the fact, hey, repeatability is what makes me better. What makes me more efficient and what makes me throw harder. And then going past that, there's a huge debate between back leg action, which can go on forever.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, some people say you need to push off the mound, but then for every guy that says you need to push off the mound, there's another guy who says you need to just work down the mound or not really create force off the mound. It's like
or pull down the mound, which is something
yeah,
that I heard Scherzer say some stuff about that, about
yeah,
how he's trying to keep his back foot pushing into the ground while his front foot's sweeping out. Which,
yeah,
when you watch his motion, I think somebody posted a video of him in the bullpen in spring
yeah,
training, and I watched that. I'm sure you do the same thing I do, where you
yeah, yeah.
watch the video, it's on loop, and you don't even realize you watched it 100 times before that you're like, oh, okay, I need to
It's like
stop for a second. Like on Twitter, the pitching ninja, his gifs are just so awesome. But anybody that throws anything I'll waste 10 minutes of my life just watching the same thing over and over and over.
exactly.
But that's one of the things that I did like about what Scherzer, when he was talking about how he's trying to press on the ground as hard as he can and then make his front foot sweep out as fast as he can. And then when you watch that side angle of that, it's just so awesome. I posted something that I saw last night with Pedro Martinez, and I like what's called a positive angle, which is pretty much the same thing of keeping your back foot into the ground as long as you can, which is what the what's that one device, the Velo Pro harness.
Yeah.
And it promotes the same thing, and I like that. It's a great tool for that, and keeping positive angle. For the guys at home that don't understand what I'm talking about, positive angle, that's where your front foot's higher than your back foot, your front hip's higher than your back hip, and your front shoulder's higher than your back shoulder. But it's not extreme. It's not, what's his name, with the Brewers and with the Astros, Mike, what's his name, where you're, completely, I think it's Mike, whatever it is, but that's just an extreme example. But that, like you said, customizing and working for him, that's something that works with it. So with that being said, you're a pocket whip guy. What is, because what's so funny about the pocket whip? I think everybody has their different version of it. Because when you watch it and you watch the examples on that page and the other people that put it out there, for what I see with the pocket, I see like 5 different things. Yeah. So, and it all is interpretation. It's all customizing. What do you think your version of it? And then I'll compare it to my version.
Yeah. So when I think about the pocket or how we bring the ball out of our hand, a lot of people say glove up, ball down. I think that's more of like a general way to talk about it. But understand that, like, it gives you a point of reference of where you need to break the baseball. So when I break the baseball and I work to my hip, I'm creating flexion into my elbow. So when I go from the pocket and I lift into a loaded position, I'm maintaining flexion. I'm maintaining pressure throughout my bicep. And loading up my posterior delt, the head of my lat, all the way through down my posterior oblique system. So now I'm creating tension. But basically, the end all be all is creating tension in our throws, creating tension in our swing, because that's all that really matters. So when I get when I go from a pocket and I lift into a loaded position, realistically, whether I create a long arm swing or if I don't, I'm going to get to that position whether I like it or not, if I'm going to be successful. That's how I create tension, because I'm going to land in a loaded position at foot strike. At foot strike, I got to be loaded. Simple as that.
Mm.
If you're not loaded, you're kind of putting yourself in a bad spot. But I find it to be efficient because it keeps you in line with your body. So a big problem I had throughout my career was I would never stay in line ever, not even close. I would go, hey, let's go back here where, oh, I'm way behind my shoulder. Now I'm going to put so much stress on my anterior shoulder capsule that I'm going to shred it. But I think that's something that helped me when I started to revamp my arm action was understanding, hey, I want to stay in line with my body so I'm not creating too much stress. I think it becomes a more efficient and stress-free version of a throwing motion. Yeah, a lot of people say, hey, let's get super long, let's work into the shoulder, but they're going to get to the same positions regardless. So there's a give and take with the pocket. It's like, yeah, you can get to the pocket and get to a loaded position, but couldn't you do the same thing by creating a long arm swing and getting to a loaded position? Technically, yes. And that's why a lot of kids, it has to be individualized.
Yeah.
Like your throwing motion and my throwing motion are completely different, but what works for me and what works for you aren't the same. And
Exactly.
but at the end of the day, we're going to have huge amount of similarities in our movements because we're both going to get to a good loaded position. We're going to create good foot strike. We're going to brace with our front side. We're going to we're going to rotate our shoulder through on follow through. We're going to do a million different things correct, but there are going to be variable differences.
Yeah, that's really where I've I really feel like the iPhone, the year that they came out with slow motion on the iPhone was revolutionary, I think, to the internet pitching world.
Of course.
I have been posting videos of kids. You could actually go to my page and look back. You can go all the way back to when I was in Florida, and I'm posting slow motion video motion of guys throwing, and the evolution of even the information. You can see it, where there's a lot of guys and see, it's so funny that when that pocket thing came out, I've been calling similar thing the gun for a while because I felt like glove up, arm down looked like a pistol. So I've been calling it the gun, make a gun, and then it's cues. And I would tell the kids, I say, when you get down to what feels good down here with the throwing hand down by the pocket, I said, act like you grabbed groceries for mom and just raise them up, which is loading the posterior, loading the posterior, the thing, which is, I think, it's funny about that. Now, you take the pocket and then you look at some of the pages, and it seems like some of the guys who are into the pocket are into anti-momentum. And so looking at what am I into that stuff, when I'm looking at how I throw, I have a credible long stride. I stride farther than anybody else. And
you
so,
definitely do. I've seen that many times.
and it's something that I've done since I was 10. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it hasn't really been a launch thing. And I've had tons of people tell me, oh, if you shorten your stride, this and that. That's been the one thing that I've noticed that I've never been able to do. When I try to quote unquote shorten my stride, that's just a natural thing that I do. I have a slight delay in my upper half to be able to control that side of it. But the more I've talked to some other guys and watching a lot of, especially the VIP guys who are into the shuffle fire shot put med balls and stuff like that, the things that I've noticed with that is that those guys are timing that hip to shoulder rotation better and being able to get to that, raise the thing with the medicine ball to create the momentum. And then that momentum, the way I've kind of interpreted is the more momentum that you have into rotation, the easier it is to rotate farther and faster. And
100%.
And the guys that I see with that are, you're looking at Blake Snell right now, explodes down the mound. You're looking at Chapman. Chapman, I think, Chapman's huge into this whole weighted ball thing and everything. And I think that, Kershaw's a long stride guy too. And I have a theory on Kershaw why he keeps getting hurt. I actually saw Kershaw throw like his second year at Dodger Stadium. It was awesome. Looking at him then to now, I feel like, speaking of tension, I think that tension backside to front side and how to create the loose, controlled, but yet free arm deceleration is one of his big issues. Because if you watch him right now, he's trying to not over-rotate Zach Greinke style. Yeah. And I think that when he was younger and he was over-rotating and having complete shoulder and hip rotation on his follow-through, I feel like he was better. And looking at his season last year when they were in the World Series, I don't think he'd thrown the ball any better. what do you think about guys who try to tinker like that? Like, he threw the ball better than I've ever seen him in the playoffs. And then when he comes back, it looked like to me he was trying to finish square and stop what he's doing.
Yeah, I don't. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's what I don't understand why these guys, especially at the highest level, like Clayton Kershaw, like, dude, you are a name brand in professional baseball. You are an all-star almost every year. Why are you tinkering with the stuff you're doing? It's for the same reason, like, look at like Tim Lincecum. Like, he never tinkered with anything. He
Yeah.
just did the same thing throughout, whether it failed. He showed success, showed failure. He never changed it because that's what felt good for him. That's what he knew was right. Or, for example, like Trevor Bauer doesn't really change his movements. Yeah, he's huge into pitch design, which I'm trying to get into. It's a huge process because I think it's revolutionary as far as pitching goes, especially because major league programs are buying into Rapsodo and the pitch design age more than anybody.
Yeah.
And I think that needs to trickle down to youth sports because at the end of the day, if you can maximize your ability to throw your off-speed pitches and maximize your fastballs, you're going to be more successful. One of my favorite pitchers to watch ever when it comes to rotation and being explosive, RIP Yordano Ventura, is one of my favorite pitchers to watch
Yeah,
ever.
for sure.
Because that dude was more controlled yet explosive than anyone I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Because his stride was unbelievably short, which amazed me. Because he would create forward movement on leg lift, and then in a blink of an eye, he would already have thrown the baseball.
Yeah.
Same guys with like Marcus Stroman. Marcus Stroman creates immense amounts of hip rotation and shoulder rotation forward. And that's where, like, when people say like recoiling, I think recoiling is one of the best ways to decelerate because when you land into foot strike, creating as much force and you create that good leg brace, if you don't really recoil, like, you're kind of slowing yourself down. That's why when people say like, hey, let's get over our front side and reach to our toes and whatever, it's like, hey, get in the fielding position. Like, you are becoming less athletic at that particular moment because you're slowing down everything. Your body needs to decelerate somehow. When you see guys recoil, if you watch in slow-mo, they're getting full shoulder extension forward, creating the shoulder rotation forward all the way into their backside. Their arm touches basically their backside or kind of hits the front of their chest and then recoils back. Like, and people say like, oh, well, that's bad. I was like, oh, they're not finishing their pitches. Like, are you watching what I'm watching? Like, they're completely creating shoulder rotation forward and finishing their pitch and then finishing in
it's a natural thing.
An absolute swaggy way to finish pitches. It's like look at these guys.
It's so funny that as we're talking about these guys who are throwing, and you hear about, oh, arm recoil's bad and this and that, and it's so funny how those guys who do it or are so successful at it, and they call it the Conyo finish, and it's just so true because there's so many guys that I've seen that legit have a Conyo finish, and that's the first time I say it. And I've stood point blank next to a guy who threw 101.
Yeah.
And speaking of what you're saying with Yordano Ventura, this guy threw just like him, and I've never seen anybody get hit harder. And it really baffled me until I started looking at this. And this is something, and I want your opinion on.
Yeah.
Flight time. I think flight time of the baseball, especially with fastballs, is a very underrated statistic. Because I've seen, like I said, you see some short stride guys, and then you hear hitters, like when some guys face me and they see the guns. Right now, I'm not, obviously I'm 32. I'm not elite shape going, but I can still go out and throw, and I can touch 90.
Of course.
But the guys that recently I threw against some college guys, and they were talking about how I was 88-90, but my 88-90 looked so much harder, and everything moved so much later than anything some of these kids have ever faced. And I said, well, according to my distance, what I was saying, my foot stride, my front toe to the guy that I'm pitching against his front toe, I cleared his entire step. I was literally an entire foot closer to the thing, and I think that's an underrated thing. And you hear some hitters talk about it where this guy's 92 looks like 100, and I just can't see it. And then you look at the stuff that they're doing. Even Stroman, now that he's come back after the DL, I'm trying to see a difference in what he's kind of changed, and it looks like he
Yeah.
does have more momentum and a longer stride right now. And he he does great job with that arm rotation and getting that arm coming through. With one of the things, one of my favorite rules, I call it rules for especially when I'm teaching kids at the beginning, to teach
Yeah.
the gun and everything. After I
Of
teach them the
course.
gun, there's 3 rules that I've run into, and I want to get your opinion on this. Is one, both hands move at the same time. That's actually, I feel like it's one of the things that's not preached. When you see kids when they're trying to throw, I'm trying to teach them, look, we're trying to be a Ferris wheel, but on your axis, your arm path. We're trying to match the clock of what you're trying to do. I think that I don't hear a lot of people talk about that, because you see a lot of people that, like what I call, like what you were saying, where you have the pocket where it's ball down, glove up. I see a lot of people that want to swing up.
Oh, God.
When I see people swing up, by the way, it's not that it's wrong. I just feel like I see more guys who have shoulder and elbow pain with the swing up. You know what I mean? And that's the way I was taught, and that's one of the things that I was told to change, was to swing up. And then, coming from experience, this guy gave out.
Yeah.
It happens.
I mean, we were all taught that way.
Exactly. So that's number one. Both hands move at the same time. Number two, and this is where I feel like this part is debatable, because you see people all the time with a glove tuck and all this stuff. I really feel like both arms can't cross at any point. And the reason why is because of the tension part you were talking about. So if you take your glove and you tuck it and you reach as far underneath to that follow through position, you're getting what I call shoulder crunch, where both shoulders are moving forward at the same time, just because you're stopping. And I feel like that puts massive tension on the shoulders, the chest, and then especially when I'm trying to decelerate, I don't want any tension on that. I want that conio finish as best as I can.
Of course.
And then number 3 is both hands finish past the hip, even with the the conio finish. I want both hands. You see Charlie Morton right now really doing a good job of over exaggerating his glove side, getting behind his body. Scherzer's, still, even though he's a glove tuck guy, the glove goes with the shoulder. It doesn't stop. And so 3 rule. What do you think about those 3 basic rules of throwing?
Yeah. So when we talk about like front arm action, when we're talking about like where it goes, like I am not a glove tuck guy. The reason why I'm not a glove tuck guy is because I think of it as a huge stop sign.
Yeah.
When it comes to acceleration, it's like especially for kids, it's like, hey, I'm gonna extend my arm forward and I'm gonna glove tuck. Well, now I'm kind of in a terrible position where I'm trying to accelerate my front arm, and now I can't really create any shoulder rotation, and I'm kind of decelerating way before I want to, because physiologically, when my front arm hits my chest, my body wants to stop. So get it out of the way. It's like, that's why, like, for example, like I've done something early on that I learned from Driveline was positive disconnection. When we talk about positive disconnection, it's almost like our front arm disconnects from our torso. So into foot strike, we land in a loaded position toward the target, but then we create disconnection with my front arm. So it creates a lane for our chest and our backside to go through. It's like, if I don't clear my front side and work past my body or parallel to my body, I'm not really finishing my throw. There's no way I can recoil from like this. It's impossible.
Yeah.
But like when you see it but the problem is you see it nonstop in guys. You see guys with glove tucks. You see guys with gloves behind their back. You see guys with their glove down. You see guys with their glove like here. But so then there's a huge debate, like, oh, what's more efficient? Like, why does there even need to be a debate? What works for the individual?
Exactly.
Like if I tried to go like this, I would throw way slower than I do. But if I create positive disconnection and I create, like, when I throw, my glove goes way behind my back, and so does you. Like I've seen you throw plenty of times. It's like, hey, you're creating good shoulder rotation. We're pulling your glove through, and you're creating massive amounts of extension. So when it comes to the stride length, that goes hand in hand to forward momentum. Like, I know a lot of kids, like, the whole old school ideal of staying over the rubber is very, very dead. It's like we're not creating anything that way. So like my biggest philosophy is understanding when we lift our leg, whether it be a full leg kick, slide step, whatever, we need to create forward momentum. sorry, it just needs to happen because we're explosive athletes. We need to move as fast as we can in one direction, creating as much velocity as we can. So if I'm creating forward momentum and trailing my backside, like creating pressure or thinking about pushing through the floor or through the mound as I move forward, I'm going to create an explosive movement when that front foot hits the ground. So all three of those rules, I like them. They're awesome. Strictly because it covers all the bases.
I feel like they're general enough to where if you are a glove tuck guy, we're just trying to get the shoulders to keep going. You know, and well, one of the biggest glove tuck guys that I've seen, I've seen him throw 3 times now. And what I really love is Verlander, and he's such a giant glove tuck guy. And when it's so crazy how you remember last year before he got traded, they were talking about how washed up he was.
Yeah.
And they were saying, his velo's down, he's 90, 92. And all I saw was him glove tuck, finish square, and then short stride. And then now if you watch him with the Astros, if you compare his video from when he was with the Tigers and then when he was with the Astros, his stride's longer, he's lower to the ground with his front leg. His front leg's bent longer. And his glove, he does still have his glove tuck, but his follow through on his arm, he gets that whip, that recoil that's quote unquote so bad. And it's so funny how he in one start, he had that. I think he missed one start to set up for his next one. Yeah. And for the way I've interpreted it, it definitely seems like, and the Astros are so into this video and Edgertronic and all that stuff, they showed him, when you throw 100, this is what you do. You stride this far, you rotate this fast, this is what you do. And then he comes out and wins 9 games in a row. And now he goes from, you're old and washed up, where in 1 week, you're old and washed up. Now you're 97, 100 the whole game, blowing cheese by guys. And they're going like, by the way, throw your curveball more, and you're seeing all these philosophies and these things going around where it's like, yeah, man, like if we're playing percentages, it's so much harder to hit a moving ball when you're not quite sure what's going on, and you're looking at Morton, you're looking at Bauer, you're looking at Verlander, and they're starting to have their number 2 pitch, which I would say Bauer's is curveball, Morton's is curveball, Verlander's is curveball, are almost the same percentage as their fastball. And then they're tunneling it so much better. I love it. Like it's so fun to watch, when you're watching all this stuff on the internet and you're watching guys going, one of the pitches that I feel like growing up that I heard was a taboo was righty lefty or lefty righty up and away fastballs, and it was a thing. No, you don't do that because the guy can just dump it over the third baseman. And now you're seeing Verlander and Morton missing 0-1 on purpose up and away, and you're watching the guy so worried about the fastball that the hands start or something moves, and then they're throwing a backdoor curve coming out of the same tunnel, and the guy has no chance.
But like the whole philosophy now is understanding what's important. Like velocity matters. Simple as that. I mean, velocity is huge. You see guys like Trevor Bauer or like, for example, like Severino. That dude throws 100 miles an hour the entire game. And how many balls does he hit his spot with?
Yeah.
Like half, right? They're never like dotted. Like when you see pitches dotted, that's super impressive because he's taking 100 and putting it on the black. But then 90% of the time, you see, if you watch a baseball game, whether it is you see anybody pitch, whether it be Garrett Cole, Trevor Bauer, Severino, whatever, you're going to see balls miss middle on a regular basis, or miss up and away, or miss low and in, or up and in, and you're going to they see more swing and misses than I've seen in my life. It's like, but then when on like Instagram, it's like you post a video of someone throwing 100 middle, and it's like, he missed down the middle of the plate. I'm like, dude, like you don't get it. It's like, that's 100 miles an hour. You can barely see it. Number one. Number two, it's got 3 inches of tilt, either across or down. Like you're not going to hit that pitch. I don't care where it's going to be.
Yeah,
but. Like
I think Severino and Garrett, the same thing. Longer stride, more shoulder rotation. And then, okay, here's one more thing. Loose front glove hand. So
yes,
to lose tension. Because like that's one of the things same thing. Squeeze the glove, pull it in, which activates the bicep. which stops the shoulder. And so for you guys at home, that's a giant nugget. That's like a super secret that I just kind of, I've got a buddy of mine who's indie ball right now, and I won't tell you where he's at, but he just hit like 95 for the first time. And we've been working off season, and I'm super pumped because he throws like 94, 95 miles straight down bowling ball, Kevin Brown sinkers. And it's unbelievable. Like, it's so fun to watch him throw. And, you know, he really feels a big difference and understands what he's trying to do. And, you know, I really hope he signs this year because I'll be so happy for him because he's a former Pecos League guy too. And it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to watch him go through, you know, that whole progression of stuff.
But yeah, like when we talk about front arm, it's like, it's almost like it's dead, right? So up until foot strike, we have to maintain tension because we can't have it flying around, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not going to fly open and become just a mess of arms and legs.
Yes.
But when I land in a strong position, I'm acting my bicep. As I start to disconnect, I'm releasing tension in my front side to clear tension for the rest of my body. It's
exactly.
I can't be like, oh, here we go. I'm gonna load myself up to my chest. It's like, hey, clear it and let it rip.
Yeah, perfect, awesome. Well, and I think that's probably, we have reached a good point. You know, we've covered a lot of things. I think we could part 2, 3, 8 of this conversation all day. Yeah, exactly. Well, we will definitely do this again because this is awesome. And I have a great idea, and I think you'll like it. I want to get, because I'll say on this platform, I can have 8 guys go at once. So I want to get a nice round table where we just get just different guys, you know, Johansson baseball, all the people that understand, and we just have a debate, share information, because I feel like that's something that a lot of people miss, you know, and it's definitely a fun environment on the internet. And, you know, besides some sour apples and some people who apparently have no more time on their hands except for to, you know, ridicule and not look at things in a different light. I mean, I got one guy from Nebraska that literally once a month sends me novels on why I'm wrong. And it takes every little bit. I'm so many type deletes that it's like,
all right, cut it.
You know, like, I need to listen. I can't do this because if I send what I want to send, then like what happened with Bauer tweeting that one kid, you know, it's definitely a thing that, you know, has to be figured out. You know, so
I mean, at the end of the day, like, people are always going to have their opinions. They're always going to down our ideas, or if it's not something they believe in.
Exactly.
I mean, that's why I don't worry about it. Like, I get DMs all the time, like, dude, what is that? It's like, that looks horrible. It's like, oh, that's not efficient. I'm like, okay, well, you know what? You can have your opinion, but I'm not. Whatever works for each individual is what matters.
Hey, just keep enjoying 80 poo. You know,
yeah, exactly. It's like, hey, you throw 78. Like, okay, well, good luck.
Yeah, eventually you're gonna try something different. Eventually you're gonna see, you know, that you long tossing at 70% because someone told you that you need to save your bullets because
save your bullets. Good idea.
Yeah, save your bullets because your arm only has so many bullets. Except for that could be the worst analogy in the history of baseball, right there.
Literally.
Yeah. Cool.
Literally.
All right, dude. Well, tell everybody where they can go. Prime.perform on Instagram. Give everybody, you know, your details, all of the good stuff. Yeah.
So please follow me on @prime.perform on Instagram. In addition, please follow @Connecticut Wolfpack. I work at the batting cage in Bridgeport, Connecticut. We run our AAU teams, Connecticut Wolfpack, anywhere from 10 to 18U. My Prime Performance, huge strong program, all kinds of strength information. Follow me right now. I do online programming. Hit me up. We'll get to work. Get some gains.
Yes, do that. Do that, guys. If you haven't, do it. I'm working on some online stuff. I'll tell you about it off air. I've got some pretty exciting stuff. Maybe do you guys ever come to Arizona for the stuff over there, or do you stay in Florida?
No, we kind of just stay around.
Oh, you stay around. You haven't gotten to do the big stuff yet?
No, like, we don't really fly around. We kind of stay local in the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast region for now.
Gotcha.
And then eventually it's going to start branching out.
Right on. Well, if I'm ever up that way, we need to set up a clinic and do some collab stuff together. I mean, there's, you know, I've been setting up clinics, try to do things wherever I go. Are you gonna go to the coaches convention in Dallas in January?
I hope so.
So that, So
trying to work that.
we shall share a cerveza and have even more fun. You know.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Definitely cool. All right, guys. Well, appreciate it. Go follow Rob over on Prime Perform and his other page for everything's probably going to be on his Instagram page on there. I'll put it all in the link I'll put it all in the description of this on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Buy some shirts. Don't think just throw. Cutternation, all kinds of stuff on there. I got the weighted balls that you scared of. I got the shoulder tube. I got the J bands. I got the floss, the 108 flush bands, like, you know, whatever, man. I want to help. And if you got a question, I've got on how to use all those on YouTube as well. So you got anything else for them? You got any more nuggets?
Oh, we got to save nuggets for the next time.
Yeah.
But please buy that shirt. That thing is fresh.
Yeah.
Hey.
Don't think just throw, man.
Don't think
just throw. Sounds good. All right, man. I appreciate it. Don't go anywhere. We'll chat a little bit more and go from there. Guys, thanks. One last thing. Don't forget, and I know it's kind of a theme, throw hard. Throw hard.
Yeah.
Please.
Please
throw hard.
Please. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.